Hi, I'm Jeff Gerstmann. I've been covering video games, at least somewhat professionally, since like 1992. I was in high school back then, and it was a much different industry. So what's it like when me, an idiot high school kid, hooks up with another somewhat smarter high school kid and set off on adventures to places like Las Vegas? Well, you're going to find out in Boyz II Men, the Patreon exclusive podcast where myself and Glenn Rubenstein walk down memory lane and talk about all sorts of shenanigans as we got into public access and starting a band and, oh yeah, the rise of the Super Nintendo and everything else that happened along the way.
I had this really weird trip to Nintendo in early 1993 because I'd given a lot of coverage to Sega. And again, this is a company that was in our backyard.
Yeah, they're local. It's very easy to visit them. So
I get this invite from Nintendo. And they say, hey, we'd like to strengthen our relationship. And I remember you and I were talking about this ahead of time. And we're like, oh, what are they going to show you? What is it going to be? Are you going to get to see some CD-ROM? They sent a car to my house to drive me to San Francisco Airport. They paid for me to go to Seattle. I show up and I'm like, okay, what am I going to see? Who am I meeting with? So this executive is who I'm going to be meeting with. And I'm like, okay, this is the big time behind closed doors. And he proceeds to sit me down. And I'm not going to say he'd been drinking, but just imagine that energy. And I was 16 at the time.
Yeah.
They flew me up there and he sat me down to basically berate me for 2 hours and say, we measured, you have given 37 inches of column coverage to Sega as opposed to 5 inches for Nintendo.
Yeah.
He was like, how many hours did you put it on Legend of Zelda? You know, he's sitting there like interrogating me.
And then so I ran into one of them. He was a good guy. I love, I haven't seen in years, but I've gotten into all kinds of dumb trouble with in the years following, involving the city's water supply and a bunch of other stupid shit.
Were you the fucking Joker? Like,
there were some folks who worked for the water department, and they had all the keys to get to where there was this giant water tank up north side of town, out by the Adobe or whatever. And people would go, you know, they had all the keys. So they would open up the top of this fucking tank and then jump in it and swim. And everyone would be hanging out on the top of this water tank, just wasted. I was not there this night, but one night someone jumped in, but his leg clipped the ladder and tore his leg open. And he, I guess, bled real bad. And they had to pull him out, drive him to the emergency room, and just pull one of those fucking leave him in front. He'll be fine. We've got to get out of here type of things. But yes, of course, like once you have friends who have access to the water supply, eventually one of those friends goes, we need to get a bunch of LSD and wake this town up. It never happened as far as I know. But
this was pre-Petaluma Batman too. So yes, no one. And when I say Petaluma Batman, I'm not just building on my joke.
No, yeah. Look up Petaluma Batman sometime. There
was legitimately for like 3 years a Petaluma Batman.
Yeah.
And this was recently.
Glenn and I would go on to work for magazines in the 90s, and then eventually we helped found the console-based coverage at Gamespot, something they called Video Gamespot at the time. And so we've really been there through all of this big, weird multimedia mess. This is, I think, where it gets super weird. The multimedia era. This is probably where we start getting into the very short-lived plan for me to be the Dennis Leary of video games in some CD-ROM magazine. We shot that at the tennis courts bathrooms, which was also, I don't know if you know this, but it was also in later years would serve as a glory hole. Brendan and I found that out the hard way. The only thing I remember being a real hassle to see at this show was Street Fighter 2.
Oh yeah,
because they had it pretty much on one screen, but it was like 9 TVs put together, one of those type Matrix type deals, and there was just a line. It was the only game at that show that I remember having just a massive fucking line, and people were doing arcade rules, like the winner would stay, the loser would walk. And so most of the people that were in and around the video game industry at this time were fucking dudes in suits that had no idea what they were doing.
Oh yeah.
And they were just like, I'm gonna see what the hype is all about with this Street Fighter 2. My son says it's the bomb diggity. And then they would get there and mash the buttons and you would whip their ass and be like, get the fuck out of here, old man. That was something I learned pretty early on, seeing the video game industry for the first time and realizing that the vast majority of it were these empty suits, these dudes smoking cigars and just like that knew nothing about the products. The other fun thing that happened that really kind of set the tone for me is I believe Turtles in Time was the game for this. It's me and Ryan McDonald going around playing games. So we were, in the Konami booth playing this Ninja Turtles game, and it's going like, oh, this is cool. All right. And we just kept playing it, and we finished the game. While the guy from Konami, who is one of these like sales guys who's walking around with some retailer who's like watching us finish it in their booth going, I don't know. And the Konami guy like basically said like, I wish you hadn't fucking done that. In our fucking, like in front of these people I'm trying to sell copies of this game to. And we're just like, make a longer game.
What publication are you with? At the Controls? I'm never subscribing to that.
Ah, damn.
Doing public access television and being comfortable around a camera ended up being a really big game changer for me later down the line when stuff started evolving and we started being on camera a lot more. Like I was already comfortable with that, largely in part because of all of that shitty public access we did.
Let's talk about some of the sketches. Actually, as I look at these, you said you were okay talking about
let's talk about it. So this is the piece de resistance. This is the sketch that would have cemented our careers as visionaries.
Jeff Gerstmann is not a vegetable man. And so, look, cheap laughs. What's a cheap laugh when you're a teenage boy? Like mimic having sex with
humping
something.
stuff.
We liked parodies. We saw ourselves as, satirists.
Of course, yes. Masters of the
Lawnmower Man. The Lawnmower Man was in theaters. And
yes.
I remember The Lawnmower Man had a really stupid trailer. But I think the idea was, what if we did something and we call it the Grass Cutter Man, but instead of going into virtual reality to become a genius, he's having sex with vegetables.
Yes.
And that's going to make him smart.
Exactly. And I think that was the full, because I did not see, I still have not seen that movie. Yes, I think that was the entire premise. And we shot me dry fucking a bag of vegetables.
And it was tight. It was tightly edited. Yep. I remember watching
it. It was the best thing we've ever done. Like it was like the clearest, just purest premise to execution. Just boom, boom, boom. Like done in half an hour.
So proud.
And I was like, this is the fucking funniest shit we've done. And I showed it to my parents. That's Game Boyz II Men, available exclusively on Patreon at patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. Head over there for that and lots more. And I'll see you in the 90s.